What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the J Area Podcast. My name is Jose Ramos Jr., and this is it. This is the final week, the final stop before Super Bowl 58. And as you can see in the background, Jerry Rice, San Francisco 49ers, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in what is a highly anticipated matchup for, again, the Super Bowl 58 championship. It's a rematch of Super Bowl 54 4 years ago. And over the course of these last 2 weeks, a lot of hype, a lot of anticipation, and a lot of animosity between, apparently, NFL fans and this matchup. People are saying this is the matchup that nobody wanted. Well, regardless, your team's not in. Our teams are. And it's the matchup that I can speak for Niner fans. I think the matchup that we wanted as an opportunity to avenge that Super Bowl loss 4 years ago to the very same Kansas City Chiefs. George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league, was filmed saying after that loss that he will be back. He will be back with a vengeance, and it may have taken a little bit longer than we would have liked, but nonetheless, they're back. They're back. Him, Christian McCaffrey, his first Super Bowl, Trent Williams, his first Super Bowl, but along with guys who were rookies during that first Super Bowl run, like a Nick Bosa, a Deebo Samuel. We have Kyle Shanahan, who's back for his third overall Super Bowl, his second as a head coach. This is a team that has been on a mission over the course of this last year. They have wanted to prove themselves that last year wasn't a fluke. A lot of people discounted them for their loss in the NFC Championship against the Philadelphia Eagles. But you have to remember, when Brock Purdy went out in that first quarter, it changed the dynamic of the game. And over the course of that game, it just kept slipping away from them. Then Josh Johnson comes in. There's no one to throw the ball. He gets out. Then we have to put in guys like Usher and Christian McCaffrey and run a wildcat formation. It was just an ugly game. I had said during that game, in all my years of a Niner fan, that was probably the most disappointing game I had ever seen. And it wasn't through any fault of our own. It's just a matter of circumstance. So they spend the course of this season trying to avenge that loss and to prove that that season that Brock Purdy wasn't a fluke. We go on to win 12 games this year. We had a 3-game losing streak, a little bit of a skid there. And then through all that, they dismantle the Cowboys. They dismantle the Eagles, who were the two teams in the NFC that many were touting as the main threats to the NFC to the Super Bowl in terms of what's in front of the Niners. This team just feels different. And I spoke to Jared, my brother, about this during our win against the Detroit Lions. And we both agree that this team's just different. They're built different offensively. Defensively, we have taken a little bit of a step back. And that's something that we're going to have to sorely improve if we're going to compete with the Chiefs and especially Mahomes. We have to get to him. We have to pressure him. We have to sack him for sure. And we have to make sure that he knows that we're there. But I'm confident that given the history between these two teams, I'm confident that given what the Niners experienced, whether it was the loss at the Super Bowl, the 2020 season where everyone gets injured, the 2021 season where they lose to the Rams, 2022 season when they lose to the Eagles, it's all come down to this. In sports, it's all about motivation. And I don't think I've seen a team as motivated, at least in the sense of the Niners. I don't think I've seen a team like this as motivated. These guys are locked in. I look forward to the game. Me being me, I'm optimistic. I try to be very optimistic. And I just hope that they leave it all out on the field. They give their best efforts, because if you give your best effort, there's nothing you can complain about. If we continue to play our game offensively and the defense steps up and they limit that connection between a Travis Kelce and a Patrick Mahomes, I do believe that we can emerge victorious and earn our 6th Super Bowl, our first in 29 years, and in the process also having our 39th playoff victory in franchise history, which would be 2 ahead of like the next team, which I believe is the Patriots. This game means so much more than just sports. It means so much to members of the faithful who have been following this team their whole lives, such as my family. And it means so much to the overall story that is being told. Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, you would think would have overwhelming support and would have so much to go for him. Yet it feels like it's the opposite. People have continually criticized him for whether he's being a game manager or a game changer or whether he's being carried by this offense, but ultimately he's doing things that he shouldn't be doing as the last pick in the draft. Not only that, it's his only his second year in the NFL, his first complete season in the NFL. And he's in the Super Bowl. You could argue last year he could have been in the Super Bowl. He wasn't, of course, obviously, because of what happened. But you can make the argument that he has gone back-to-back years in the Super Bowl. You certainly can say he went back-to-back years in the NFC Championship. And to go from the last pick in the draft, seemingly out of nowhere after he was the backup to Trey Lance, to Jimmy Garoppolo, and now he's an MVP candidate. Now, granted, he probably won't win it due to that performance against Baltimore. But to see him go through all the motions, to see him go through these progressions and evolve in such a short time into who he is. And keep in mind, this is only his second overall season. He can only grow from here as he gets accustomed to the offense, as he gets accustomed to what it's like to be an NFL quarterback. And overall, as he continues to gain that experience in the playoffs, I expect his confidence levels to rise. Now, him against the Patrick Mahomes, who is a perennial playoff player and also a Super Bowl candidate, he's been in the Super Bowl, this is his 4th time in his career. That's nothing to shy away from. Much congratulations to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But I've always looked at it in the sense of bulletin board material. And if I'm Brock Purdy, I'm listening to the noise. I may not be reacting to it, but I hear what people are saying. I see what they're tweeting. I understand where they're coming from. I may not like it, but ultimately I can't control what people think or what people say. But I can control what I can do. And so I'm hoping that Brock Purdy has a stellar game. Because he may not have had stellar games in the first halves against the Packers and the Lions, but he certainly closed it out. Leading that drive to defeat the Packers, helping lead that comeback against the Lions. In this episode, you're going to hear me interview my good friend Daniel, get his take from the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship games. We also discuss the Super Bowl, our predictions, our highlights. What do we think about Patrick Mahomes? What do we think about Brock Purdy? So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify as well. And let's get into the first interview. All right, we are less than 1 week heading into the Super Bowl, and I am here back with my good friend Daniel, Dan the Man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing real good, thank you. Appreciate having you on the episode, having you on the pod again.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here. Glad to talk some sports. Glad to chill with my bro and just kind of to soak in on what we seen during the conference championships.
Yeah, the AFC Championship saw the Kansas City Chiefs defeat the number 1 seeded Baltimore Ravens, and the San Francisco 49ers would have one of the more historic comebacks in the NFC Championship against the Detroit Lions. I know last week I had Jared on the pod, and for those who haven't checked out the episode, please check out that episode and give us a like, give us a follow, and subscribe to the channel. But I wanted your take on how those games had unfolded, and what are your takeaways from the Chiefs and the Niners end?
Well, I'd say with the Chiefs, start off with the Chiefs specifically. I feel like Lamar Jackson went into it trying not to run, and when people don't play their game, we get games like this where it looks like he just was a completely different player than the whole entire season. He was balling. And I think the narrative that everyone has for Lamar, like, oh, he's a running back, he runs it too much. Shit, who cares what the noise is saying? Who cares what people are saying? If it works, it works. I feel like it's been shown historically that mobile quarterbacks are a danger to every team, to every team's defense. You look at prime Cam Newton. You look at the Mahomes that did it to the Ravens. He was running and scrambling around, and I would have liked to seen Lamar put it on the ground a bit more. He looked very hesitant. He looked scared. He didn't own the moment. It looked like that nigga was just out there. So I mean, they weren't playing their true game. The Ravens weren't running it. I mean, I feel like their defense was keeping them in. You know, uh, I don't even know if the Chiefs scored in the second half. The
No, they didn't.
Ravens defense was really keeping him in the game, but he just couldn't get it done. And so I think it really came down to the experience in playoffs, the experience in clutch moments. And Patrick Mahomes showed, why he's getting paid that much money and why people, regard him as one of the all-time greats. Of course, him and Travis Kelsey breaking a 49er historic record. So, um, I think that was my takeaway for that. And then as for the Lions and Niners, I mean, we've seen Brock Purdy get outperformed every single game of this playoffs by the quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff looked like Jared fucking Brady. I mean, he was throwing some fucking dimes, cutting the defense apart. They got the run game going early, you know, forced a turnover. I thought it was over. Brock threw an interception, and it looked like, man, this game was over. They came back and fought their way through. Props to Kittle, props to IU, props to Debo for some good runs. And I honestly didn't know how effective he was going to be because we didn't know how healthy he was. Um, and I still have questions on him going to the Super Bowl, how his health will be. But the 49ers pulled it out the bag unbeknownst to Brock Purdy. Um, I see a lot of Brock slander going around, and I agree with it. I believe that he's a game manager. He hasn't proven himself yet in the playoffs. Um, it feels like these clutch moments, he just kind of folds under pressure and throws himself into a deficit. Would you agree with that sentiment that he's putting you guys in a deficit at each playoff game?
I wouldn't think it's fair enough to solely blame it on him. I know in certain games, certainly against like the Green Bay Packers, one could question the play calling of Kyle Shanahan and how he kind of drops the relentlessness in terms of the run game. When you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey, I feel like you have to run the ball. Maybe not excessively to some extent, but to maintain that presence and that consistency in the run game to help alleviate the pressure on Brock Purdy certainly does lend itself to the success that we've seen. I do think, to touch on the Brock Purdy slander, I think at some points it can be warranted, but you brought up the whole game manager aspect. Would you agree that in that second half, he had a big part to do of that comeback, and against the Green Bay Packers, a big part in the reason why they were able to lead that final game-winning drive? Because what Brock Purdy did in both of those series was he used his legs, and that's something that the Niners haven't really been accustomed to, certainly with a Jimmy G. Now that we have Brock Purdy, we can see him dink and dunk, as some people like to criticize him for. He can throw it deep, but now you're adding in the extra effort of the run game. Now, I'm not asking him to be Cam Newton or Lamar Jackson, but for him to consistently be able to get those 10-yard gains for first downs, extending the plays, extending the drives, and in the case of the Green Bay Packers, to keep the clock running, that certainly does prove to be very beneficial to our offense and the overall game plan of winning these games. My one concern with Brock Purdy is his experience level. Now, it is his
Mm-hmm.
second year in the NFL. It's his first complete season. But you're now going against a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's in his fourth Super Bowl. Will the lights prove to be too bright for a Brock Purdy? Me personally, I don't think so. I think he thrives under this. I think he will succeed under this. But I need them to get to a hot start against the Kansas City Chiefs, because you can't fall behind 17 points like they did against Detroit. You can't let them stay in the game for long like they did with the Green Bay Packers. And I think you can agree with that sentiment that on offense, these guys have to have their foot on the gas all game long. All game long. and you need the defense to, of course, do their part. But to say that Brock Purdy is just a game manager and not a game changer, I think, like I said, in certain instance, it's a fair assessment. We're not going to compare him to the elite yet. It's too soon. But people are quick to assume that he's just a game manager when what's the difference between that and a Tom Brady in his early season? Or like a Kurt Warner in 1999 with The Greatest Show on Turf. I don't remember a lot of people. Of course, I was like 1 year old when Kurt Warner won his Super Bowl. But history treats Kurt Warner well when he had a cast of characters like a Marshall Falk, like a Torrey Holt, like an Isaac Bruce. Why do we not treat him the same way? I think over time, history will also treat Brock Purdy well.
And I can agree with that. I mean, that's a great sentiment as well. We found out that Kurt Warner is nothing but a game manager when he threw away the game against the Steelers, right? Having literally the best, you could say, in that year, Larry Fitzgerald was top 2 best receivers. I mean, he might be top 5 all time. So Kurt Warner has always had talent around him. And you're completely right. Tom Brady did start off as, just the backup guy, and he had to prove himself. But the difference between Brady and Brock is that Brady is a winner. Brock hasn't won anything yet. So, yes, Brady might have been managing when he first came in because he's coming in off of a backup of a fairly good quarterback. Drew Bledsoe was not like a scrub. So, I mean, he had a lot to kind of overcome, whereas I feel like Brock Purdy kind of gets the green light because, his quarterback was Jimmy G, but no one's really given Jimmy G props. Would you agree that Jimmy G is certainly not an elite quarterback? Like, I mean, we talk about Brock Purdy not being at that level yet. I mean, Jimmy G is certainly not elite. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I would agree with that sentiment, and I would be one of the bigger Jimmy G supporters at the time. I remember I had these conversations with my dad and my mom, and the one thing they like to compare between him and Brock is when Jimmy G would drop back, the way he would throw the ball would just increase the nerves. They were never fully comfortable with him throwing the ball. And we don't get that sense with Brock. But with Jimmy G, in a sense, when you compare his play style and his efficiency to that of a Brock Purdy, the numbers are very similar, but the numbers don't tell the whole story. You have to be able to pass the eye test. And I find that there's another level of confidence in this offense with a Brock Purdy versus that of a Jimmy G. Because in retrospect, I feel like he was a hindrance on our offense. I feel like he kind of held us back from what we could have been potentially, especially in that 2019 season when we faced the very same Chiefs.
He wasn't a game manager. He was definitely a game ruiner.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the opposite of that shit would be. He turns the ball over like we've never seen before. Would you agree? Like, I mean, we've seen him at other teams and do the same thing. He's a turnover machine. And that's why, when I'm calling Brock Purdy a game manager, Jose, I'm giving him his respect. I'm giving him his flowers because there's guys who aren't game managers. Dak Prescott has shown he's not even a game manager because he can't manage the game in clutch situations when it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And all that means, it sounds simple enough, but it's actually pretty hard, is not turn the ball over, keep the clock running, and get a first down, right? And that seems very simple because we're not necessarily asking you to score. We're not asking you to be an Aaron Rodgers and throw, a 70-yard deep ball Hail Mary on a scramble. But we're asking you to move the chains. Would you agree with that being the definition of a manager?
Yeah, and I think that's what it should be. I just don't like the negative connotation that a lot of people have been putting on the game manager because if you remember our very first conversation when Jimmy G and Trey Lance went down and Brock Purdy was inserted into the number 1 spot, the first thing I told you, Dan, was it's okay. We don't need him to be a Patrick Mahomes. We just need him to get the ball to the playmakers and have them make the plays. As long as he's not turning the ball over and making dumb mistakes, that's the bare minimum that we need him to do. We don't need him to be extra or be elite. So the fact that he was in contention for the MVP award this year, in my opinion, he's already overperforming than what he should be doing, especially given that he's the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely with what his circumstances are coming into it being the last pick of the draft. He has outperformed. But now we have to eliminate those past expectations. And if we want to put this dude in the MVP talk, If he wants to be in that conversation, he has to make MVP type of plays. And he's been, in my opinion, outperformed by every quarterback he's played in the playoffs so far. Jordan Love looked like Joe Montana. Like, I mean, it looked like night and day. Now, I will say this in a test to your point. He definitely showed something that we haven't seen him do really often, and he was moving the chains with his legs, which is why I think teams are a bit unprepared for him because he's never been a guy to take off and run with it. So with him adding that element, it shows to me that right now Brock Purdy is a game manager, but he has the potential to be a game changer because not a lot of quarterbacks are comfortable with it, with the ball tucked on their arms. You never see guys like, Cooper Rush trying to scramble, um, because they're not comfortable with that. They'd much rather take the sack. I feel like that's what Lamar Jackson looked like. He was comfortable with taking the sack in his game and was not trying to win. He was trying to play a certain way. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to get the ball in the end zone. And Brock had that mindset to where he's like, I don't care that I'm having a bad game passing wise. I'm going to get this ball to the end zone. And, he moved the chains and he opened up the field for his team because now they have to contain him and just made some plays. I don't think he made game-changing plays, though he had some plays that, definitely added to the momentum and the morale of the team. I do believe he's still in that game manager role, which, like I said, is me giving him his respect. But I think, unlike other game managers, he has the option and the opportunity, I should say, to become a game changer. I truly believe that. And just right now, he's not really performing, and he's throwing this team into a deficit. And we've seen how that works. That once you do that to an experienced team, they're just going to pull away. Mahomes is not the type to let you catch back. They catch up. They've been in too many, Super Bowls, too many playoff appearances. They played against the GOAT, Tom Brady. It's not happening. Once they're up 14, you're probably going to be down 14 the rest of the game.
No, and I'm glad you brought up Patrick Mahomes as well because of the experience factor that he, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and the Kansas City Chiefs have. A lot of sports talk in the last couple of weeks is certainly because of their elimination of like the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of people for the last couple of years for that reason, but have anointed him almost as like the GOAT in terms of quarterbacking in the NFL. And I wanted your take on how they've treated Patrick Mahomes. I know he has 2 Super Bowls to his name, which, credit to him and that franchise. But I'm not ready to anoint him as the greatest quarterback of all time. So what's your take on how the media has been presenting him, especially in recent years?
I feel like the recency bias is there. I feel like we are seeing a guy having success early in his career. But when we talk about all-time greats, it's not short-time greats. It's not fast-time greats. It's all-time. So we're accumulating all of their accolades, all of the narratives that they overcame, all of the championships that they've won. I recently seen a list where Tom Brady is put as the number 1 player in the NFL of all time. And you know that I'm a Brady fan. I love Brady. Grew up on Brady, using him in Madden 06, where we had Dylan Branch. And, man, it was just some fun times using Brady. He was a cheat code. But I will tell you that the greatest of all time is undoubtedly Jerry Rice. But because this generation is far from Jerry Rice, people see the inflated numbers and think that the skill level was less because it was a decade ago or 2-3 decades ago. So I think a lot of fans and media are suffering from that because although Patrick Mahomes has had a great run, if his career would end right now, he would be a Hall of Famer. But he definitely, if you're talking about passing yards, passing touchdowns, he's not even in the top 10. I mean, I'm not too sure on his totals. Let's go check. Would you think if he retired right now, he would be a top 10 quarterback?
Top 10, I think he'd have an argument. But I wouldn't be like so sure to be like, oh yeah, for sure. I could think of us, several other people who could be in the top 10 ahead of him. Certainly some guys who haven't even won a ring, because there's guys like Dan Marino, for example, who never won a ring, but you can't deny his greatness. The only thing is
Yeah.
a guy like Dan Marino didn't have a Tyreek Hill or a Travis Kelce or a coach like Andy Reid. He did have Don Shula, but Don Shula wasn't an offensive genius like Andy Reid is.
Yeah.
But you brought up
Yeah.
you brought up Jerry Rice real quick, and of course I'm a little biased because he's a San Francisco 49er, but we talk about guys like Patrick Mahomes, we talk about guys like Tom Brady, you mentioned Jerry Rice. I'm really interested, real quick, do you have a Mount Rushmore of all-time greats for the NFL?
Yes, I do have a Mount Rushmore, and they're not necessarily greatest of all time, but I'm gonna go with most influential of all time.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Jerry Rice. I'm gonna go Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and I'm gonna have to go Barry Sanders. I
Okay.
believe that these are the most influential, probably the most influential players we've seen. And, honorable mention, I'm going to say a Jim Brown. I love guys. I'm sorry if I'm missing guys like Walter Payton. Love Walter Payton. The Drew Brees, the Peyton Manning. But these guys changed the game. I mean, Joe Montana is Tom Brady's hero and a lot of guys' hero. We've never seen anyone, you know, to me, Joe Montana is the Jordan of football, going undefeated. And then you got your Jerry Rice, who's like the Kareem of football. He has all the stats. He has all the accolades. He's the hard worker. He had longevity. And then, of course, Barry Sanders, the best rusher of all time, and Jim Brown, one of the early pioneers of rushing when running backs were at their peak, as far as position-wise. So that's my Rushmore. What about you?
First of all, I like that Mount Rushmore. That's a W take. But also, I like how you prefaced it as in terms of influential. And I think that's very important because these are guys who have a legacy and a Hall of Fame careers that not only influence their peers, but certainly the generations that come after. And
Yeah.
with my Mount Rushmore, I do have it as the greats of all time, but it's not very different than yours. On my Mount Rushmore, I have guys like Jerry Rice, Tom Brady, I have Jim Brown, and then at fourth spot, I have Lawrence Taylor.
Over Joe.
Over Joe. Well, because the way I looked at it was position wise, and I'm willing to say that Tom Brady, in terms of quarterbacking, I can put him over Joe, and that's me being like a Niner fan. I'm obviously biased for the Niners, but I can put Joe over him. I look at it as Jerry Rice being the greatest receiver of all time. You could argue between him and Brady as who was the GOAT of the sport. I think Tom Brady is self-explanatory. I don't think you have to go too much into detail with that. And you already touched upon a Jim Brown and his influence to not only just the position, but the sport and also what it meant to be an athlete. And you could even bring into his own account of the civil rights movement and how he was able to contribute not only from his own experiences as a black athlete in America, but just as an individual on how a leader should portray themselves and present themselves to the public. And then with a guy like Lawrence Taylor, who basically redefined how defenses are looked at or how they're schemed and how offenses would combat that. I liken him to like a Shaquille O'Neal, to where their presence and their efficiency basically changed the game and how it would go about and evolve over the next few years and decades. So that's my Mount Rushmore personally.
And I can agree with that. I can take LT. I think LT is a good pick. I'm just saying, man, you can't go Joe Montana. Just his name. Like, who has a cooler name than that?
Yeah.
Like,
Dick Butkus.
I don't know. That's a crazy take right there.
Dick Butkus.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that one, man.
Okay.
I think that Joe Montana, the coolest name. Second coolest, Ray Rice.
Ray Rice is cool. Ray Rice, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a hit. It's a hit.
Oh man.
Real quick, Dan. I want your take on this. A lot of people have been making a big deal about this, and I want your take on it as well. Have you seen the field conditions for the practices for Kansas City and San Francisco in the last day or two?
I have not. heard any news on this. What's up with the
So
practice conditions?
so obviously they're in Las Vegas where it's the home of the Raiders. The San Francisco 49ers, their practice field is UNLV, their field, which is outdoors, and it's raining, and they had to replace the grass and still have the sod being put in place. It's not 100% set, and with the rain, it's not really great conditions to be practicing, certainly for a Super Bowl. And the athletes, the San Francisco 49ers, have described it as like a spongy surface that isn't really set in place. And they feel like it could be a detriment to their health and their preparation for the Super Bowl. Whereas the Kansas City Chiefs have been practicing in the newly minted Las Vegas Raiders practice facility, which is indoors with already set turf and everything. And a lot of people have been criticizing the league about the differences in field preparations, given that they've known for some time that Las Vegas would be the home of the Super Bowl, yet they didn't really prepare it to be kind of an even playing field for both sides. And the San Francisco 49ers, they were even given the option to share that same facility with the Kansas City Chiefs. It would just alter the scheduling of practices throughout the week. So the league went to Kansas City to see if that was okay with them, and the Chiefs declined, saying, no, we want this location for us. The Niners have to continue at UNLV.
Now, when we talk about this, these are professional athletes, and obviously you know that they're trying to get right for the big day. But we also got to understand, hey, it's a week before the Super Bowl. They're probably not even wearing pads, you know? It's a lot of walkthroughs. They're not doing anything crazy. I mean, shit, Debo's on his last leg. I doubt they're having him do sprints on that field, so it doesn't even need traction. Second off, I do find confusion. Who had the better season record? Was it the 49ers?
Yeah, by a game.
Okay. If 49ers have the best season record, they should get preference on whatever field they want to practice at. But, I don't know if you're familiar with the football community on YouTube. You got guys like Destroying who come to high schools like Perry High School in Arizona, where it's great field, great turf. I'm sure they can find some high school in Las Vegas that they could practice at, the 49ers. You have access to any field. It doesn't have to be Las Vegas Raiders. It doesn't matter the size either, because again, we're just doing walkthroughs. All you need is some good grass. You mean to tell me that in all of Las Vegas and all of Nevada, there's only 2 stadiums they can play at? Like, you can go to find a high school that's vacant and rent it out. I'm sure it'd actually be good for business, get some autographs and sell some 49ers merch,
Sure.
So, I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, it's just another thing that they're trying. Like, I really recently looked into the Justin Tucker situation. I feel like Justin Tucker, at first I was like, man, like, that's disrespectful. They threw his stuff. But he also knew what he was doing. He had that smug look on his face. And you got to share the field. He wasn't sharing it. And then he was being petty and moved his stuff like an inch. So they had enough. Travis Kelce, who's going to stick up for his guy, threw it. So, I mean, these are all things to me that don't affect the game. Like I said, you could practice anywhere. Shit, they could practice in San Fran and then fly to Las Vegas. You literally have that access being a professional athlete, that you have access to private jets and private buses and things that other people don't. This isn't a high school game where all you have is your field. You can practice anywhere you would like. So I'm not hearing it from the 49ers fans and vice versa from the Chiefs fans. My only discretion is, I think, okay, 49ers have the best record. They should get preference. That's my only thing, is they should get first pick, because they're the number one seeded team. So if this was basketball, they would be playing in, San Francisco Stadium, right? So I feel like they should have the quote-unquote home advantage.
See, I'm not opposed to that either, but the fact is, the way the NFL works at Super Bowls, it alternates who's the home team, and in the even numbers, the AFC is designated the home team. So I guess if you want to make sense of it, why the Chiefs are playing in the Raiders facility is because they're technically by default the designated home team. I do think I do agree with your take in terms of the field about how like well it can't be the only field available. But my thing is if they're saying this, and again these are just reports. We don't know obviously all of it, the whole story. But if they're saying that the sod and the turf or whatever the case may be with the grass is just being added recently and with the rain coming in, and that's not going to help it. You knew the Super Bowl was going to be this week. Could they not have prepared it at a more appropriate time? There's a weather app. If you know that it's going to rain, like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's other ways to prepare for that. And I know, speaking on behalf of like Niner fans, we're not happy because it only presents that narrative that the preferential treatment towards the Chiefs because they're defending champions and it's Mahomes and stuff like that. And I'm not one to make excuses or to feed into that narrative. It's just it's out there. But I do think that this is a perfect opportunity for the 49ers to finally, not finally, but have more bulletin board material to add to their list. Even if it wasn't intentional and even if it's something of a slight convenience. But if I'm on the Niners staff and on the roster, I'm looking at it like, see, they don't want us to win. And again, I'm not saying it's intentional, but this is like the mentality that I'm developing in order to get back to the Super Bowl and beat the Chiefs. I think ultimately, yes, it is a physical game, but if you can win in the mental aspect, that goes a long way. And I think you can agree with that, Dan.
Yes, I can agree with that. I definitely think that there's different aspects of the game, and this is just, another aspect that you guys will have to overcome if you have any hopes of being a Super Bowl champ. But to me, Jose, this isn't looking good going into the game that you guys are thinking about something other than practicing. If they're complaining about the fields, their mind isn't really focused on the game. Now, I know the field is a part of the game, but I mean, well, at some point we just got to buckle down and say, okay, we're only doing limited stuff anyways. We don't really need the fields to be perfect. Now, I get what you're saying is that the preparation, it seems like it wasn't well thought out. I don't know how to grow grass. For those who don't know, we are located in Arizona, so it's not like we stay in grassy areas, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they want the grass to be somewhat fresh. And I don't know if prepping it, before that would lose the quality of the grass. So I'm not, too sure on that. I'm sure they did it for a reason. It does seem off that, theirs is the one being replanted. However, Jose, if it was you, would you share the field with Kansas City? That means they can see all of your game plans. They can now spy on all of your plays and all of your packages and huddle counts.
You see,
You'd be okay with that?
I'm glad you brought this up, and this is something that gets lost in the the miscommunication. They would have to alter the scheduling for the practices, so they wouldn't technically share it at the same time. In 2012, Super Bowl 47, when the Niners had faced the Baltimore Ravens, a similar situation had occurred, and the Niners were the designated home team, and they even elected to like, okay, then we'll share with the Ravens and we'll alter the practicing schedule. They did that, 10 years ago. I'm not saying they should do it now. It's a different year. It's a different team. The Chiefs clearly aren't classy enough to do that. But I'm saying is it's happened before where a team has said, okay, fine, we'll share it with you. We'll just have to go about the scheduling differently, you know?
Yeah. And hey, that's you, Jose. Me, no. I need every advantage that I want. I want every comfortable, edge that comes with being the home team. And as we know, the Patriots, as much as we love them, they've been accused of several things
Yeah.
amongst the years. One being spying. And we know it's not far fetched for you to be able to spy on a team, whether you guys are practicing at the same time or not.
That's fair.
But it does give 49ers personnel, um, a reason to be at the stadium. So they're like, oh, like, what are you doing here? Where it's our time to practice. Oh, we're just prepping the locker room for the guys, or we're just prepping the water. And now we got a camcorder watching Kelsey running slants. So, um, I just feel like, like let's keep them separate. And what it is, the 49ers could practice anywhere else. Doesn't have to be the most perfectly. And that's another thing. We got to stop coddling these professional athletes, man. They're professional athletes for a reason. They get paid millions to play football, and it doesn't have to be perfect conditions. When these guys were from their respective hometowns, they weren't worried about the fields. They're worrying about doing their absolute best so that they could make it out of the situation that they're in, or get a scholarship, or win the high school state championship. So, I mean, if we're babying about it, if we're, calling them for everything, we lose the art of the gladiator sport. Gladiators don't always have even ground or even footing.
Mm. Yeah, no, and I think that's a good take too. I for one am not mad at the Chiefs. I know you talked about how, in terms of strategy, if you're the Chiefs, you're not giving in. Yeah, I'm not mad at them because I feel like that's reasonable enough. If you're the opposition, you want to try to take advantage of any situation that you can. My gripe is really with the NFL and its preparation. That's it. I'm not mad at the Chiefs for it. Granted, it does kind of suck to start off the week that way, but to close out this segment of the interview, Kyle Shanahan did say they had questioned him during open media on Monday that what are the conditions of the grass, and he said it's getting better slowly, and it is what it is. We're just gonna have to play through it. So the Niners acknowledged it. They've already made their issues with the league and how they went about it, but it looks like they're gonna go through it and just work on that field.
Okay, and would you hold this against the Chiefs if the Chiefs? So let's say now, okay, I want you to take this in perspective. We know that there's already a lot of guys banged up because it's the last game of the season, right?
Sure.
What would you say if after the fact, God forbid, the 49ers lose, and Christian McCaffrey is complaining of a strained, I don't know, hamstring? Would you blame this on the Chiefs? Like, would you feel like it was warranted if guys felt banged up going into it?
On the Niners side,
On the Niners side,
I wouldn't hold it against the Chiefs. I wouldn't hold
would
it
that
against the
be
Chiefs.
an asterisk next to their Super Bowl ring?
No, I don't think so. I'm not in the business of holding asterisks on championships. Now, if something were to happen, drastically in the Super Bowl, which I'm not even going to speak into existence, then maybe. But in the case of what you brought up, no, I wouldn't hold it against them, especially because other than their decision to not allow us to share, other than that, the Chiefs have no control over what's going on. You know what I mean? They're not the
Yeah.
ones that selected UNLV's field. They don't control the weather. The only thing that they control is whether or not they want to choose, and that's why it's their choice. And if they choose not to do it, that's their choice, and we have to respect it. But I go back to that whole motivation. I want them to use it as motivation. I want the Niners to look at that a certain way and go into this game firing on all cylinders. But that's just me personally.
Right? And I agree with that. They gotta take take it with a grain of salt, and be like, hey, this is how you feel.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna show you, what it's really like over here, and the West Coast, and do their thing.
Yep.
But I mean, the same thing happened to the Chiefs, I believe, when they beat the Bills and they turned off the hot water. So I mean,
But that was post game.
yeah.
That was post
Oh,
game though.
so then you do think this has bearings on the game then?
Well, no, I'm just saying that in itself wasn't like okay. The hot water isn't controlled by the league. That's in the stadium. That's just
Yeah.
that's just the Bills. Again, I don't want to accuse them of it, but if we're going off semantics and optics and how it looks, that's just them being sore losers, or it's just a coincidence that their hot water went out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't compare that to this situation.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Now, if they win, will this hold an extra for you? Would this hold some, I don't want to say animosity, but would that be added to the list of things that you guys boast about, or, savor about this win? If you guys get it done, and the preparation wasn't right, is this something that you guys are going to be speaking about after the fact?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As fan, I mean, I don't know about them. I don't know about the athletes who are actually on the field doing the job.
Yeah.
But I know as fans, oh for sure, like we're gonna say something about it.
So then it does hold an asterisk then, because that's going to be a Super Bowl where like, and we didn't even get to practice on the right field, the
But
wet or stable field. It was wet, being replanted. Okay,
but I
I
feel
can
like
see that.
I feel an asterisk though has a negative connotation. If we're saying an asterisk, that's in the sense of like if they lose. And
Yeah,
I don't want to take away from another team's win unless if it's warranted, but in this case I don't think it is. If on the other hand, if we win, then we can use that as like a like hey, like that was motivation. So I guess it's all perspective on how you want to look at it and how you want to take the connotation really.
yeah. Well, now I feel like the Chiefs have to win because with all this is, on their side, them having the home field advantage and being able to practice in good conditions, they got to win. I mean, if people are saying Mahomes is a top 3 quarterback ever, he's got to win. I think this means a lot for the Chiefs because now if they don't win, it's like, dang, you had everything going for you. You had just the press alone from Taylor Swift being in the press box. I mean, you getting a lot of coverage, a lot of people behind you. I feel like, I don't know about you, Jose, you would have to speak on this as a 49er fan. I feel like I've met a lot more people rooting for the Chiefs than I have the 49ers, yet I think the 49ers are favored to win it all.
I think that's an interesting thing too because I know in my personal life I haven't met anybody that's going for the Niners. They're going for the Chiefs, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But if we go by like the television pundits and the analysts and everybody on TV, the Niners are technically favored by 1 point. Yet everyone's picking the Chiefs. Everyone's picking the Chiefs because of Mahomes. And what I look for in these predictions, and we'll get to ours in a bit, but when I look at these predictions, I'm looking for logic. I'm looking for warranty. I'm looking for reasoning. And the one thing I get from everyone's predictions when they say Chiefs, 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 it's they say they have Mahomes. That's the number one reason they say they have Mahomes. And that's fine because I do think of all the positions, the Chiefs have us beat at quarterback. But then I look at fullback, I look at wide receiver, I look at tight end, I look at defensive end, I look at linebacker. You can even argue I look at punter, I look at kicker. I think we have those edges. The one place that you can't argue, they have the better quarterback. I will concede to that and I will give them that. So everyone choosing the Chiefs over the Niners in terms of the experts, that's fine because I do think it has a little bit of warranty, but I don't like the explanation of, well, it's Mahomes. Well, that's lazy then. If you just say, oh, it's Mahomes, you know?
True, but I mean, you could say the same thing about the Falcons and Patriots. Did the Falcons have a better team? I think so. But guess what? They had Brady, and the
Hmm.
other niggas had Matt Ryan. Now, was that the same year Matt Ryan won MVP?
It was.
I mean, you could make a case for that. It's the same thing here.
And
Brock Purdy was a candidate to win MVP. I don't even think Patrick Mahomes is close in that conversation.
no,
They had a horrible regular season, a horrible start to it. And I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like it comes back to your leader. But I think it's more than that. I think you missed a couple positions. I think I think they got the better. I think they have the more used. And when I say used, I mean like in the passing game. They have a more utilized tight end than you guys. I feel like George Kittle was not utilized to his full ability, and that will be the 49ers' downfall. I feel like they have their defense looked better than the Niners' defense in their last games. They're both of those teams' last games. Now, obviously, they're playing different opponents, but you would think against a guy like Jared Goff, who you know is not going to take off, that they would have went crazy, but it just didn't, turn out that way. Now, obviously, you guys got the win, but it was an ugly win. So I can't say much about, the negligence or incompetence in 49ers defense, but it was not looking too good early on. It looked like the Lions were having it their way. It looked like Burger King. It looked like they went in there and they had it their way. So, I mean, um, I don't know, man. I feel like you're missing a couple positions. I feel like also you're underrating. If we're talking about one-on-one positions, yes, McCaffrey is better than Pacheco. But is Pacheco not, a top 5 rusher? I don't know. I mean, I think he is definitely as effective as any other good running back, and that's something that they're going to use. I feel like coaching wise, their coach is miles ahead of you guys as coach as far as experience in these clutch situations go. Um, I don't know, man. It feels like the most important positions because, you know, I don't feel like a lot of teams use fullback packages. Does the 49ers use fullback packages a lot to where the he's being used like on a play by play basis?
Not on a play-by-play basis. They tend to throw them off with those fullback packages, and it's not even designated for him. He might even be like the third or second option.
Okay, well, I mean, something that doesn't get utilized often. I feel like that's a position that's like, okay, yeah, he's first team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. Shout out to him. But I mean, it's not really going to have too much bearings on the game as far as like who has the ball in their hands.
What?
I do think you guys have the better receiving core, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. I feel like Travis is going to really show, what he's worth, and Mahomes is going to show you the quarterback that he is, and he's going to make a way out of no way. And I feel like, man, Brock Purdy has been being outperformed by Jordan Love. He's definitely going to get outperformed by Mahomes. The difference is Mahomes is not going to give the game away at the end of the game. Fourth quarter is where he thrives. So, like you said earlier, if Brock Purdy doesn't put it away soon, it's going to be too late.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Super Bowl Sunday. Dan, real quick before I let you go, you got to give me your prediction. Vegas man Dan.
Okay, you heard it here. Vegas man Dan, I got the Chiefs winning by, I'm going to go by, dang, I can't tell if it's going to be a close game or a blowout. I'm going to say the Chiefs win by a touchdown. I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Mahomes all score. Mahomes rushes it in for one. Kelce catches a touchdown. McCaffrey rushes it in for one, and Kittle scores one at receiving. And then I'm going to say both quarterbacks throw 250 plus. Brock
Okay.
Purdy throws a pick. Pat Mahomes has a clean sheet. And I think Patrick Mahomes doesn't get sacked the entire game.
Mm-hmm. Who do you got for Super Bowl MVP?
Super Bowl MVP is going to go to Kelce.
Kelce. Okay. That's solid.
What is your take, Jose?
So I realize now the way I responded to that. I'm not salty at all. Like, I prefer it. I prefer those picks. I welcome them. And you give sound analysis. And I like that you give out stats to that too, because I will be coming back for those. But
Okay.
I'll give you the score. I'm going San Francisco 30-24. That's the final. I have us winning by 6 points. I think it's going to be a lot closer. The previous two games, I had us winning big. Given the way our defense has performed in these last two games, I think they're going to have to step up for sure against Patrick Mahomes because he's the best one we faced all playoffs. I think it's going to be a battle throughout the entire game, and we'll pull away in the fourth quarter. Not like, oh, we're leaving them by like 20 points. I'm thinking for the majority of the game, it's going to go back and forth. We're looking at like a 17-17 entering the third quarter, or excuse me, coming out of the third quarter. And ultimately, the fourth quarter hits, and we'll begin to pull away 30-24. I'm going to give the Super Bowl MVP award to Christian McCaffrey. I think he has multiple touchdowns on the ground, maybe one through the air, but I do envision him seeing 2 touchdowns on the floor for sure.
At least. I agree with you there. I'm going against the Niners, but I believe McCaffrey is going to be the X factor. He's going to have rushing yards. He's going to have passing yards. Shit, we might even see him chuck the ball
Yeah, you
on
never
a
know.
trick play. So, I mean, I feel like he's going to be really how close the 49ers are in it is due to his performance. Sadly, I don't think the loser can get Super Bowl MVP. So although I think he's going to be the most productive out of any one of both teams, I don't think he gets Super Bowl MVP. But I see 2 touchdowns easily.
I will say there's only been one time that the loser of the Super Bowl won an MVP award. It was Super Bowl 5. Chuck Howley for the Dallas Cowboys won the MVP award, although the Baltimore Colts had won the Super Bowl that year. Just a real quick fact for NFL
Okay, so I
historians.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then that means McCaffrey has a
He
chance.
has a 1 out of 58 chance.
Yeah,
But
that's a pretty
that's a
small
chance.
chance, and I think he'll be outshadowed by the Swifties and Kelsey
Yeah.
when it's all said and done.
All right. Well, real quick, I anticipate keep an eye out on George Kittle and Nick Bosa and Christian McCaffrey. Those are the three guys I think to watch out for in the Niners. I think they're going to have big games, personally.
Yeah, we also got to keep an eye out for the road. Patrick Mahomes Sr. is a menace. Don't drink and drive, kids. Wear your seatbelts. And yeah, it's been nice being on this show, man, and kind of picking your brain about the Super Bowl.
All right. Appreciate it, Dan. Always on the pod. I hope to have you again, especially post Super Bowl. We'll see how it goes. Again, thank you very much for being on the pod, bro.
Thank you.
Oh, real quick, shout out too. By the time this episode comes out, someone's gonna have a birthday.
Yeah, 21, big 21 guys. About to drop $300 on FanDuel. You know, for my Chiefs, I'm feeling a little Mahomey.
Okay, Albert.
So,
That's a little inside joke for people who know.
but I'm gonna make a couple bands off that, and at the same time, I'll be able to rub it in Jose's face. I'll have take him out to dinner because I know it'll be sad that the Niners lost. So,
Well, hopefully it'll be the other way around, brother. Thank you again. Welcome back to the episode, Jared. We're calling you Jared because at work I have to whitewash it, but
Damn, you have to say whitewashing.
well, it's because it's true. Everyone knows you as Jared at work, but at home we call you Jared, which is in Spanish.
Yeah.
So whenever I catch myself saying one or the other, it's not the same for me. But nonetheless, welcome back to the podcast. We are less than a week away from the Super Bowl. It is the 8th appearance for the San Francisco 49ers. What's your excitement levels on a scale of 1 to 10 regarding this game?
Honestly, I'd say a 9. Okay, I'm not overly too excited. One, okay, I get it. We've been to 8 Super Bowls, but in our lifetime, we haven't seen us win.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not really too excited. I'm it's all business. Just get the job done. If you think about it, most of the time when teams go to the Super Bowl, they're over here celebrating. There's nothing wrong celebrating. I would celebrate too. But there's a difference between being overconfident and all about business. For example, look at the Eagles last year. Okay? They got way too confident and way too cocky. Look what happened. Okay? With us, we're business, we're focused because we know, we've been in this position before. Kittle knows, Fred knows, Shanahan knows, you name it. It's a rematch, dude. It's gonna be a good game,
I think I agree with that sentiment that regardless, it's going to be a good game. I look at their preparation. And the Niners, I feel are locked in. This is a different team. We talked about this at the conclusion of the NFC Championship against the Lions. This feels like a different team, both offensively and defensively, because the defense has been kind of slipping up these last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the preparation, there's a lot of reports and pictures going around regarding the practice fields. The Kansas City Chiefs have been practicing in the new state-of-the-art stadium practice field for the Las Vegas Raiders, indoors, of course. And the Niners have been relegated to the UNLV practice field, which, first of all, had a bunch of rain on it. And second of all, the sod and the grassing wasn't really placed in all the way as the rain starts coming down. What are your thoughts on that situation for the 49ers?
Well, okay, from what I've heard, what was the field called again? UNLV?
Yeah, UNLV.
Okay, so it's a college
Yes.
field, correct?
Yes.
Well, I heard the college field was actually all set and ready to go, but the NFL went ahead and laid over the sod over the field, which made it even more of a spongier surface. That's what Scheffner said, correct?
Yeah.
And it's kind of annoying because, dude, it's the Super Bowl. Okay, I believe, since two teams are playing at a high level, they both should be treated fairly and have the same facilities. I'm not saying share it, but I'm saying have some similarities, okay? If the Chiefs are going to practice indoor, let us play indoors. Because it's not really fair because at this point it's you're risking for injuries. Okay? And it's just not really fair for the league to be doing this. It's really annoying. But yeah, man.
I don't look at it as a sense of fairness because I don't want it to come off as Niner fans or the Niners complaining and
Like another excuse.
Like another excuse. But I do think they should use this as motivation, as extra. Use it as extra motivation for the game. I feel like a lot of people have been sliding them regardless of their positioning in the seating or who they have on their team or who their quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they should use it as motivation and hype themselves up for the big game, especially given all the coverage that's been going towards Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think that the Niners have that slight edge in that they can propel themselves into thinking they're the underdogs. Because although they are favored in the Vegas betting odds, a lot of the experts, a lot of the pundits have been choosing the Chiefs over the Niners for the sole reason that they have Patrick Mahomes. And I'm all fine and dandy with that. I would rather prefer them to choose the Chiefs over us. But looking on the perspective as a Niner fan, would you agree with that sentiment that they should use this as that motivation?
I mean, I wouldn't mind because I used to play football for like a year or two. And yeah, I know we did bad, but I mean, we took it as motivation. Like, people are like doubting us and they want us to fail, you know? And okay, I might get a little bit sidetracked. Why are we getting a lot of hate? Especially Purdy. Like, what did he do? He's just doing his job, man. Like, stop being mean, guys.
It still baffles me. I fail to understand why there's so much criticism towards him, especially with guys like Cam Newton, who criticize him and call him a game manager versus that of a game changer. Whether he's a game manager or a game changer, it doesn't really matter to me, because you can look at one of the greatest game managers of all time in Tom Brady. Tom Brady had a great cast around him, whether it was a Gronkowski, Edelman, Randy Moss, and even before then he had guys like Deion Branch on the team as well. Like, he had a cast of characters. In order to succeed in this league, you have to have a team. You can't do it by yourself.
Exactly, dude. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, I was going to say no Super Bowl champion has done it by themselves. The one guy that did it by himself, and you can't name someone that really was a star on his team, Dan Marino. And how many championships does he have?
Exactly.
He doesn't have any. You need to have a group of players. Joe Montana had players. Peyton Manning had players. Bradshaw had players. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone has to have that help. What I saw was interesting. I was on Twitter, or X, whatever they want to call it nowadays. They said Brock Purdy could become the Eli Manning to Patrick Mahomes' Brady. And what?
I'd be cracking up.
I wouldn't be mad at it. First of all, the comparison to Brady it's crazy. But I mean, I'm just asking for one. I think it'd be really nice for them to win one, especially against this team. I think the defense certainly has to step up, though. They failed to get a lot of pressure against the Jared Goff. They did in the second half, I will say, but they have to start early. You can't fall behind against these Chiefs the way they did against the Packers, the way they did against the Lions. Guys like Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead, they got it. Kinlaw, these guys got to step up. They got to get to Mahomes. They got to make sure that their presence is known, and they got to pressure him into making those bad throws. Because in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, we did force Patrick Mahomes to make a couple of turnovers, a couple of interceptions that propelled us to get that 20-10 lead. Ultimately, we did lose that lead, but we have to put the pressure on Mahomes. We have to stop him and Kelsey, because those are the two elements in that offense that are going to really give us the most problems, I think.
I don't know, man. I was just thinking that yesterday for the press conference, or like the players like interviews and all that stuff.
The media, yeah.
Yeah, the media. Where Mahomes apparently didn't know any of our defensive players except for Bosa.
Yeah.
Dude, didn't Javarius Ward play for them and win a ring?
He did. But I welcome those kind of comments, especially by the Chiefs, because I look at it, again, as like bulletin board material. I want to be able to pinpoint these reasons as to why we should elevate our game and why people should feel like they're being disrespected. I think the Niners, at this rate, are the hungrier team. And that's not to say that the Chiefs aren't hungry, because if I'm the Chiefs, I'm trying to win a third ring and establish as a dynasty. But the Niners haven't won a championship. The only ones that have won a championship is a Javarius Ward. Aside from him, no one else has, won a Super Bowl. Only 7, 8 other guys have been in a Super Bowl on the team?
I don't even know, man.
It's a very short list. You got guys like George Kittle, Debo, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, who were on that original team back in 2019. And then you got McCaffrey and Trent Williams, who this is going to be their first Super Bowl appearance. I think all the momentum is carrying on our end, but we have to be able to capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm.
As we approach the game, like I said, under 1 week away, if you could give me a prediction or maybe a point differential, point difference in terms of the results of this game, what are you feeling at this moment?
So the point difference, I really can't give you an estimate, but I do think the game it's gonna end in like in the 20s. Okay, I think it's gonna be not a high scoring game, but a little bit sluggish defensive game if that makes sense. You know, it's gonna be a little bit messy, but entertaining if that makes sense.
So do you have both teams, scoring in the 20s?
Yeah.
Okay. When I spoke with Dan, I had told him my prediction, and I told him I'm going with the Niners, whether that's biased or not. I have them winning 30-24. I think that's what it's going to have to take. We have to get to 30. I saw a stat that said when the Niners and Brock Purdy score 20 points, we're 20-0. I don't know if 20 is going to be enough. I think we need to get to 27, 30 for sure. But we have to keep racking up, and I feel like that's reasonable. You're saying we have to win we have to score at least 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I told him. I said it earlier on the podcast. Watch out for guys like George Kittle, Nick Bosa. I think Debo's another guy, but the guy that I think is going to win Super Bowl MVP is going to be McCaffrey.
I was gonna say Usher. No, I'm just playing.
I would love it.
No, but honestly, a secret weapon, Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings, who has been a revelation for this offense. He had missed the last month of the regular season, and was finally able to play in the last 2 playoff games. Of course, I mean, come on, you can't lie. The tape doesn't lie. His third down catch in last week's game, but it was 2 weeks ago, against the Lions, really helped propel that drive and helped us keep the momentum. So, Juwan Jennings might be. I think defensively, like I said, though, Nick Bosa, I think he's due for a big game, especially given how the last Super Bowl went.
A lot of holding.
What are your thoughts on that? On him being public about the holding calls, and because one could argue that might motivate the Chiefs. So I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
Motivate them for what? Holding even more?
Well, no,
we get it. He's like the new, I don't know, Brittany from Team Turner. We're like, oh my god, we gotta like hold on to him, you know. But my point is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I know the question. If how do I feel about Bosa being held a lot and him being vocal about it? I mean, it's all known. Like almost every game, every play, he's always getting held. You know, I told you at the end of the Super Bowl 54, all the missed calls, man, and I'm not going crazy. You know, and what a coincidence! It's the same ref, man. I just hope he uses it as fuel and like goes on a rampage, you know? Like at this point, if he's gonna get held, I'm sure he's strong enough. Take them with him, dude.
I mean, it might have to come down to it. I'm not the kind of person to give excuses, and I'm not saying you're giving excuses, but what happened.
Yeah, we can't change it.
The team that won is the team that won, and all we can look forward to is this Super Bowl coming up. You know what I'm not looking forward to, and it's not out of disrespect.
Does it start with the T?
The T.
Like a person?
No.
Oh, okay.
The T.
I thought it was Taylor Swift.
No, I don't care. I'm not even gonna. No, we're not talking about Taylor Swift.
Okay, thank God, man. This is football.
You're close though. It's music. The halftime show. Usher.
That's random, honestly.
Well, I don't know how I feel about it. You know, usually the halftime show is something big, but it's like, I'm hoping he has a good show.
Yeah, same.
But I'm not really feeling it, to tell you the truth.
It's sad because I remember like listening to him as a kid, even though it's more of an Akon, but yeah, it's random. Someone has to come in.
I was gonna say I'm interested to see who he brings along with, because I don't think him alone is gonna be enough. I know last year Rihanna didn't have a feature. The Weeknd didn't have a feature a few years ago.
To be fair, that was COVID.
Well, to be fair, it was COVID. But Usher, I know there's rumors that like Justin Bieber might appear. I don't know how I feel about that, but at this point, I think it's better than nothing. So, the last great halftime show I think was probably the one in LA with Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Kendrick. Other than that, what's another memorable one that's happened in recent years? Like,
Okay, so I can't say recent years, but I think all time, you gotta tell about Michael Jackson.
well, Michael Jackson helped establish the halftime show. Prior to that, it was just like the bands, the school bands, and just generic
At this
music.
point, you might have to go back to it because there's no one that can like do the performance anymore. Because nowadays music, there's like a bad word in like every 1 second.
You
Dude.
can
Like,
censor it though. You can censor it.
so you want to listen to instrumental music then?
No, no, no. I'm just saying, like, just don't say the word. Like, then we're going back to the band. That's basically what we're saying then.
Listen, man, what goes around comes around. Okay, it's like life.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know, man. So, okay, no, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs' defense?
I think the Chiefs' defense has immensely improved. I think they're going to be the difference maker for the Chiefs. Those guys have proven to not only have that sense of improvement, but they're hungry. And I think it's interesting because it's a flip side of what happened 4 years ago in the Super Bowl. We were known for having the dominant defense and the okay offense. This time around, it's flipped. The Chiefs have the dominant defense and the okay offense, whereas we have the juggernaut of an offense. That's why I think it's so important that we need to get to 30. We get to 30 points, and hopefully the defense can do their part and limit the Chiefs. It's a recipe for a victory. I think that we have to look at guys, certainly like a Chris Jones, who is going to be the disruptor on their end. If we can contain him, I think we should be okay. Because our run game, it's going to be predicated on the run game. And for him and the other defensive linemen to stuff that line, that's going to be the difference maker. If Christian McCaffrey can get those yards and keep that clock moving and keep the chains moving, that spells victory for us.
Well, I heard they're ranked like last 10 for against the run.
Are you saying at 10 or in the bottom 10?
Bottom 10, I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to make sure. But I mean, if that's the case, I hope it's not a case of Kyle trying to outsmart his opponents by passing the ball because they think we're going to run it. If you know that they're a bad run defense, and you have, in my opinion, the best running back in the league, why wouldn't you run the ball?
I'm actually kind of scared. You know, because I said everything about, like, coming in all about business and, like, not being overconfident. I've never seen Kyle Shanahan smile and be more human.
Well, we talked about, you saw that clip during the media session.
Dude, he looked drunk.
A lot of people were saying that Coach Shanahan might have been had a little bit of brewskis before the media there.
What the hell's in his coffee cup, man?
I don't know. He is a fan of Lil Wayne. You know, Lil Wayne like to get a little turnt. I think he's letting loose. He's trying to enjoy the moment. I think he's not trying to stress out like the last one. But at the same time, it's like, okay, Kyle, I'll give you one day. I'll give you the first day. But we got to lock in. We got to lock in because this game will determine his legacy. Because you look around the league and you have guys like a Sean McVay, you have a LaFleur, you have a Kubiak, you have a D'Amico Ryans, you have a Robert Saleh. All these guys came from the Shanahan coaching tree. That's established. From years from now, the league is going to be populated with guys who were either coached with a Shanahan or coached with guys that were coached by Shanahan. His coaching tree will only expand. The only thing that is left to solidify his legacy is that Super Bowl ring. You get a ring, and it changes everything. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's just get the job done. You know what I mean?
Gotta get the job done. We can't celebrate unless the job is finished. Mm-hmm. Like Kobe said, job done, job not finished. I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have you on again, especially for next week's episode, but we have to wait and see how that goes. Fingers crossed. But like I said, I feel confident about this team. I feel very good. It hasn't hit me yet. It'll probably hit me Saturday night or Sunday morning.
Honestly, one more thing. Everyone in our family is getting nervous, like, every day, day by day. Usually that would be me. But no, lately I've just been getting more frustrated with the media. Because I feel like they're trying to gaslight and trying to start things.
Yeah, but we still have, several days until the game. So they're trying to stretch out the storylines and stuff. Yeah,
but it's just really, nerve-wracking. Because I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Okay? Like, when I first woke up yesterday, or, I don't know. When I first woke up and I heard the news about the field, the practice field, I'm like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
you're just talking about random things now, okay? At this point, we're going to talk about, oh, look, Nick Bosa was spotted at a strip club, you know? It's like, you guys talk about random things, man.
Where the hell did that come from?
It's Vegas. It's Vegas.
If you would have said Trey Lance,
Okay.
okay, I would have got Trey Lance, but it's like Bosa's not even like that.
I'm sorry, man. I forgot all about Trey Lance.
He's not even like that.
You know, Bosa ain't like that. He quiet, though.
He's too quiet. Hopefully, he makes some noise. Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. Super Bowl 58, Chiefs Niners. Hopefully, it's a good game. Anything you want to tell the crowd before we head off?
Yes. You have asked me an excellent question. So, February 29th, I believe it is a Thursday. Just send a reminder, Final Fantasy Rebirth. You know, I will be streaming that on Twitch, twitch.tv/SanFran5. I don't know when I'm going to stream on that, like what hour. But just be prepared, have your notifications on. Check out the YouTube, you know, SanFran5. Yeah, man. Of course, you can follow me on Snapchat at broke_beaner445. Yes, everyone. I'm still there, surprisingly.
They haven't kicked you off yet.
But yeah, guys, please follow the YouTube, the Twitch, and yeah, maybe I'll stream like a little bit earlier, like a few days prior. You know, maybe it's just to test things up, see if everything's still running and going. Probably kick back, play some Halo. I don't know. You name it, I got it, man. I'm like the collector now for consoles. You name it, I got it. Except for PS3. I'm still waiting for that. How about you, man? You want to know where they can find you at?
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone knows they can find me on any social media outlet at @JustJose_3.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the podcast on Spotify, YouTube at J Area Podcast. Appreciate the guys. Appreciate the love and support as we keep growing this podcast. I look forward to the next episode. My name is Jose Ramos Jr. This is my brother, Jared Ramos.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, one more thing. Happy late birthday, Dan. Okay? Appreciate you, man. We love you, bro.
There
Okay,
you
that's
go.
it.
There you go. We'll see you guys on the next episode.